We just created the capability of being able to create websites. Let's create yet another one. Okay, let's create Facebook. Create, but still, it's not showing that we're actually retrieving anything. Even though in the database we can see that indeed we were able to create these two websites, the Star Trek website and the Facebook website, for both the same developer, for Dameron, Poe Dameron here. See that? But this is still not retrieving anything, and that's because, right, we still have the old implementation for retrieving the list of websites. Right? Currently, the retrieval of all the websites, which is this one, right? Where is it? Not that one. Website service. Currently, the retrieval of the websites is this one, right? Find website for user is still using the old array. Yes? So let's replace that so that it retrieves it from the database. All right? Ideally, right, we would have something like this. We would have a data model that would have the following API, right? And notice that in the previous video, right, we implemented the website model create before refactoring the service, right? Now I'm going to do it backwards. Right? I'm going to start from the service and then going to come into the model, right? Typically, that's a better way to implement things. To think about it from a top-down way. To think about it from the client's point of view, right? The client presses a button. The controller sends intercepts that event. It calls a local service. Then it generates a URL, gets to this service, yes, and then this service generates the command to the database, right? I find it easier to think from a left-right, right? Events coming from the user as they click, right? And then you implement the necessary database access, yes, right? Typically, we think about that as a top-down design, right? And what you get to implement is only those database access that you actually need. Yes, right? To fulfill an actual necessity at the user interface. Right? If you start from the data model, what you'll end up is with lots and lots of queries that you don't really know if you're going to need at some point. Right? So I think it's better to think about it again from left to right, from top down, from the user's point of view. What do they need? Oh, they want to see the list of websites. Okay, well, let's create those queries. Yes? Right? So in that case, here I am from left to right. I've just received this query, right, of getting all the websites for a user because somebody clicked, right, and I want to see all those websites. I'm right here on the websites for user. I have the user ID, and the data model should look something like this. It should be a website model, perhaps the same name, find websites for user. We'll pass in the user ID, right? And this will come back with the websites. And then we respond with the JSON of the websites. Yes? But obviously this doesn't exist yet, right? Again, because we're going from left to right. Okay? So now we go to the data model and we implement that. We add it to the API. Right? And we implement it. We fulfill, we get the developer ID, and we do the query. We say, return the promise that at some point in a little bit, I'll go and find all the websites whose, what's the attribute? I forget in the schema. Yeah, whose developer matches the developer ID. Right? If there's 1, 2, 3, or 4 websites that match that criteria, I'll return those. I won't return those that don't match. Make sense? Okay. All right, we did that. Let's restart this. Going back to the list of websites, if I query, notice that I have those two websites that Poe had created just earlier, right? That before it was empty. That makes sense, right? So again, notice that for most what that we need to implement of adding, of retrieving, maybe even deleting, right, and updating, just the foreign key implementation is enough. Okay, just that the website knows who their parent developer is. That should be enough. Whether we want to implement also the array, it depends on use cases. For instance, from a sorting point of view, of sorting widgets inside of a page, actually it's very convenient that it's in an array, right? Because you're moving things in an array, right? You're splicing from one position and putting it in another position. It's very convenient that it's already in an array, right? Instead, if it's its own collection, it actually would make it much more complicated, right? So in some cases, it's easier to go, which is a foreign key of the child pointing to the parent. In some other cases, depending on your use cases, the implementation might be better to have the parent having an array of references to the children. Okay, but again, I'll leave that up to you. Let's go on and implement the other way, right, where we have the parent user having references to the children websites. All right, let's do that next.